TV party tonight!
Oh, we got nothing better to do than watch TV and have a couple of brews.
Don't want to talk about anything else.
We don't want to know.
We're dedicated to our favorite shows!
Oh, my circuit!
Everybody loves Hypnotoad.
Scary dog!
Flirting at Blurnsville.
Futurama!
Good evening. You are listening to a Radulich Broadcasting Network premier podcast, TV Party Tonight. I'm your host, the mandated reporter, and frankly, I'm mortified, Mr. Mark Radulich. And tonight, our favorite show is the movie, as a matter of fact, Lords of Chaos, which is the 2018 horror thriller film directed by Jonas Åkerlund, written by Dennis Magnuson and Åkerlund. It's adapted from the 1988 book of the same name, Lords of Chaos, and the film is a semi-fictionalized account of the early 1990s Norwegian black metal scene, told from the perspective of Mayhem co-founder Euronymous. It stars Rory Culkin as Euronymous, Emery Cohen as Varg Verkenes, otherwise known as Lord Grishnak. I'm not making any of that up, by the way. Jack Kilmer as Dead, and Sky Ferreira as Anne Merritt. The movie debuted at Sundance on January 23rd, 2018. It debuted in the United Kingdom on March 29th, 2019, and then it finally came to the United States. I don't know where, because I couldn't find a theater that was playing it. February 8th, 2019. It's now on Hulu for your viewing pleasure. And speaking of viewing pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, all right, Jesse Starcher.
Yeah.
I was about to make a joke, but there are even some jokes, some bits of sarcasm, even lines that I won't cross.
You won't cross them.
I won't introduce you as a man planning to burn down churches. I won't do it.
I appreciate that.
I won't do it even in jest. That's not funny.
Yes. Well, then, I'll take that intro or non-intro and run with it here.
Are you going to burn something down?
No, sir.
Okay,
Nope.
I got confused and concerned for a second.
No, this by far is one of the hardest things that I've ever had to endure in order to do a podcast on. You could talk about Pennyworth all you want all day long.
That got renewed for a second season, by the way.
Well, I saw that. I forgot to like that post, by the way. I did see that. And you know, there's been stuff I've had to suffer through. But nothing as disturbing as this movie that we're going to be talking about tonight. And I might be a panty waste here. I don't know, because I know your stomach versus my stomach, and usually mine is a little bit tougher than yours. So we'll get into that here later. But man, oh man, dude, I didn't know that I was going to be getting into something as dark as this.
Yeah, this is becoming a pattern this week for us. It's not just about zombies. The pattern is, like, the roles have switched, and you have the weaker stomach, and I'm sitting here going, what?
Yeah, no kidding.
We went through this with Blackest Night, now Lords of Chaos. I don't understand, Jesse Starcher.
I don't know, man.
So I want to just real quickly do some housekeeping, and then we'll jump into this. So, you know, with TV Party Tonight, we don't necessarily go episode by episode. We just sort of talk about some of the themes and performances and craft. And this is a movie that we watched on TV, thus the TV Party Tonight. We were going to cover the Mayhem album, but we just had a bunch of different schedule changes, and my podcasting week kind of got cut short. So, you know, and that's fine. You know, I'm going to take my kids trick-or-treating and watch Crown Jewel. That's how Halloween's going to go for me. But with that being said, I wanted to cover the movie. It was something that I've been wanting to watch for a while now. I mean, obviously it's been out for a little bit. So I figured the night before Halloween was as good a night as any to talk about this. But we're not going to review the new album. I will say this. For those of you that are into the modern incarnation of Mayhem and, you know, have gotten hip to this podcast by way of the Facebook heavy metal group, the new Mayhem album's pretty good. I mean, they sound like Mayhem. Their sound in 2019 is a lot cleaner than what they sounded like in the 90s, obviously. There are a lot of symphonic elements, as is the norm with modern European black metal. And it's worth giving a listen if you like that sort of thing. I didn't hate it, but boy, am I glad we didn't talk about it on the Metal Hammer of Doom.
Yeah, it would have been a tough one to get through.
Yeah.
I have a feeling there have been at least 2 medleys.
Yeah, there would have been a fucking medley through the whole thing. And I actually contemplated doing that on TV parties, and I just like, hey, here's kind of doing a split 7-inch with the album and then the movie. But then I was like, no, I don't. It's one of those where I don't want to force it. I don't want to force it, Jesse.
Fine.
I don't want to force us to talk about something where both of us are kind of virtually look at each other and go, sounds like Mayhem. And you hate this shit, so
yeah, it'd have been a tough one.
You're not a huge fan of the death and the black metal, if I recall.
Yeah, if it involves a bunch of just unintelligible shrieking, I'll eat it, but I'm not going to like it.
Yeah, like I said, I listened to it on the way to my cardiologist appointment. Take that, by the way, for all of you, just like, only the most extreme can listen to Mayhem. Nope, middle-aged man on the way to the cardiologist to make sure that he don't got the AFib, listening to Mayhem. And then I went to Arby's for lunch. Take that, hipsters.
We got the meats.
No, I had the meats all right. That's for a different reason. So, moving on.
Mm-hmm.
So this movie talks about the early days of Mayhem. Famously, the band is less known, I think, for their music. They're known for having been a part of the early Norwegian black metal scene that sort of spawned a whole genre. And they deserve credit for that. But I think the thing that most people associate with Mayhem are the church burnings.
Yeah.
Did you know about that before I hipped you to the movie?
I knew about the murder, but I did not know about the church burnings. I don't believe. For some reason, I'm picturing, like I may have, but I don't know if I knew it was Mayhem. So it might have been one of those things that, man, I probably learned a long time ago and just completely forgot.
Okay. So let's dig into this movie here. I mean, the plot, like most biopics, I think that we've agreed that that's how you pronounce it. And, we talked about this on the trailer react video that we did. These are not documentaries, and even documentaries can't show everything. These are dramatizations, and I think it's okay for the creative people to take liberties with the story in order to put a narrative out there. You can agree with the narrative and the point that they're trying to make. You can disagree with it. I think you can appreciate a film for its craft value without condemning it for not being a moment-by-moment, point-by-point recitation of the lives of the subject. So I didn't have a problem with the Elton John movie for that reason, even though I talked about a cousin of mine who's like, it sucks because it wasn't like blah, 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 blah. I didn't have a problem with, Ray or Walk the Line or Bohemian Rhapsody, any of those movies. They were what they were. And I think the more so than any other kind of movie, the biopic has the hurdle that they have to get over of making a subject's life interesting without just sort of, here's a series of scenes to tell the life of this person. Enjoy. And I think that's where Lords of Chaos succeeds for me as a film. And this is as good a place as any to start, and I'll kind of kick it over to you first to talk about this, Jesse. I think the point of the film is sort of looking at a couple of different things. I think there's a punk rock element to the creation of black metal that I didn't realize was there or forgotten was a part of it. The idea of examining one's own culture and society and feeling so disconnected and so frustrated, disenfranchised with your society that you start trying to take the piss out of it through art. And so, where punk rock in the 70s sort of takes the piss out of British society, and then with the Ramones, American sort of 70s malaise, that comes out of Vietnam in the 60s and all of that. I want to, the way that they start the movie, Lords of Chaos, is this is Norway, and it's perfect, and everyone's polite, and we have money, and it's, and there's just some people who, whether it's a combination of nurture and nature, just don't feel like they belong.
Yeah.
And so they seek to editorialize on that feeling of not belonging through a particular medium, in this particular case, music, and extreme music at that. Mm-hmm. And that thread carries throughout the movie. You have Euronymous, who's played by Rory Culkin, who talks about, he does this whole rant at one point about how, these death metal bands are almost bourgeois. Notice I didn't say bougie, because I'm not... Ugh. Every person who says that should stub their toe. Just instantaneously.
Burjoice.
It's just... He's commenting on sort of the bourgeois nature of even some of the more extreme elements of music and saying, no, this has... I always bring this up. He wants a musical style that's the equivalent of the Chinese restaurant in the basement behind a door in the dark that says "Beware of the leopard." Very exclusionary. Just sort of like only the fewest amongst us, the pure, as such, can appreciate this sort of thing, and it does the Cartman effect. I don't know if you saw the South Park episode, where Cartman buys a theme park and he locks everybody out, and of course they create, and this is the theme park that's going out of business. But because he locked the doors and wouldn't let anyone in, suddenly it becomes all the rage.
The biggest thing.
Yeah. And it basically says that in the movie, that I told people they couldn't have it and suddenly everyone wanted it. Mm-hmm. And then you have Varg, who is, one of these true believers, who is truly disenfranchised, truly angry, feels a sense of belonging to his Viking roots, and decides that is that should be the true nature of society, and therein lies the conflict of the movie. Somebody who's clearly sees a niche that he can market himself in and express himself, and a guy who's like, no, this is my religion, this is my life's blood, and takes it to extreme measures, and then the two don't see eye to eye, and things sort of fall to pieces. I think that's a good summation of the movie, no? Without getting into the details?
Yeah, I mean, I like that. Obviously, metal is just... Metal in itself, doesn't matter what genre, is usually completely filled with angst. In some way, shape, or form. You could have a baby metal album, and there's going to be some angst, at least on one song, okay? So it's very appropriate that somebody living in a society like that just wants their voice heard, and they don't feel like they belong, and taking it into the realm of music and becoming the most extreme. And not only do you see that in the band that is represented here in the movie, and the sound that is coming out of it, he's creating this extreme version of metal. You see it within themselves as well. There's a lot of mention of what they call the black circle, which was the innermost circle of the band and the people that were, accepted. But everybody else was either a poser or something like that. So that's, that almost kind of speaks to their, I don't want to say a sickness in their head, but I mean, that's just the type of people that they were.
Oh, but that's so general. Come on. Okay. Tonight, there are people watching NXT and AEW, and there are three opinions. AEW sucks, NXT rules. NXT sucks, AEW rules, and you people aren't cool enough to watch wrestling.
Uh-huh.
It belongs to me and me alone, in the basement behind the door that says "Beware of the Leopard."
It's a good point. I mean, I know what you're saying. We've got to, we got to boil down, and this belongs to me. This belongs to us,
right?
And only us. Then when he invites Varg, not only into the band, first off, their first meeting, their initial meeting, I think just flipped a switch in Varg's head. Now, again, we're talking about the movie, so as to whether this is accurate or not, throw that all out the window.
Let me go ahead and simplify this for everybody. We are only talking about the movie. I don't give a fuck what really happened in real life.
Yeah.
This isn't the Mayhem podcast. This is Lords of Chaos, the movie podcast.
That's right. So Varg walks into the restaurant after Mayhem have got done playing their set or whatever. Walks up to, is it Oyston? Euronymous. That's easier to say.
Isn't that funny how that's easier to say than his real name?
I don't get the umlauts and the dots and all that stuff, so whatever.
So ham sandwich, otherwise known as Euronymous.
Euronymous. So, yeah, but right after that set, Varg walks up to him and he says, hey, I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed what you guys did up there. And Euronymous just looks at him and says one word, points at a patch on his jean jacket and says, AEW. I mean, he says Scorpions.
He points at his vest and it says "Best Friends."
So right then and there, he only has to say one word, and he's just pointing out to him, "You're not worthy."
Right, you're a poser.
Yes, you're a poser, and then of course that sets Varg on it's his mission to become accepted by Mayhem, by Euronymous.
I believe this is how the story of Jesus goes. Jesus was preaching, and he had a gaggle of followers, and Judas met him while they were all having lunch, and and Jesus pointed at Judas, and he said, "You're a poser," and so Judas started following Jesus. You're not going to stop me at any point, are you?
Oh, well, what, Drew, come on. I want to hear it. I want to get to where Jesus is flipping tables.
Let's move on.
But yeah, that tension between Varg and Euronymous is right there at almost the very beginning, and then he comes in, and one of the aspects that I really liked about this movie was obviously the treatment of the character of Euronymous, about how I couldn't tell whether he was actually just someone who was doing this for show, because he brings that up a lot. He's like, no, we'll use this to further the band.
Right.
We'll use this to, so.
But then by the same token, he talks out of both sides of his mouth, because he has such an inflated ego so early on in the movie. He's like, I told him to do it, and he did it.
Yes.
I have so much power. And then the minute Varg takes the piss out of him, one of the things that really works about this movie is the relationship between Euronymous and Varg, because Euronymous has a kind of a cult of personality thing going on. People are attracted to him. People are following him. He's stepping out there and putting himself out there, and people who are maybe not as strong-willed or strong of personality are sort of gathered around him. They all foster an identity together in this culture within a culture. Mm-hmm. And then, and one of the things that makes it work is that they're so exclusionary. Only the coolest can get in. Yeah. And so when Varg tries, he's summarily rejected. But then, Varg, through persistence and talent, because what really breaks the ice is the fact that he records a demo under Burzum, which I don't know if you've ever heard of Burzum. Have you?
I've never listened to it. Other than when they mentioned it in the movie, I've never heard of it.
Okay, so that was the answer to my question. Until this movie, you'd never heard of Burzum.
That's correct.
Okay, well, they're an old shitty death metal band, black metal band. No, people are gonna be like, "Dub, fuck this podcast." If you like that sort of thing, fine. Burzum is fine. I listened to Burzum years ago. Anyway, but it turns out Burzum is actually, within the context of this movie and that genre, really, really good. And so suddenly Varg has a usefulness to Euronymous.
Yep. That's right. But I don't think he becomes part of the Black Circle until he steps his game up.
Right. And that's the thing. It's like when he starts doing the church burnings is where is where the relationship really takes an interesting turn. Suddenly, Euronymous like accepts him in, but then, but then Varg sort of blossoms and like peacocks into this new person, and he's now taking the air out of the room and the attention away from Euronymous, and it becomes competitive between the two because everybody wants to be the funny fat guy in the middle of all the girls. Know the type.
There's not only you got the sense of competition, but Euronymous, I think the whole reason he continues to try and take credit for giving people the idea or inspiring. I remember him saying that at one point. He's like, I'm glad I inspired you. And I think Varg's like, the fuck you talking, man? It wasn't like that. But I mean, you could tell he knew he was full of shit.
Right.
Euronymous has a problem with potentially losing control. I think that, this character cannot, if there is a threat to him possibly looking like not the top dog, if he's not the top dog, or if the appearance is that he's not the top dog, then he's got to do something to try and make sure that it was all his idea. So everybody has to understand it was his idea right at the outset.
And this is actually my major problem with this movie, because there are things I like about it. Mm-hmm. First of all, I was entertained. I thought it was pretty well done, but there are some structural narrative issues with it. This is almost 2 hours long, but I think there's some stuff that could have been...
It's over 2 hours, I think, like a little bit over.
118 minutes.
Yeah,
I'm looking at the wiki.
There you go.
But I think there's some stuff they could have cut in favor of giving you a sense of what's driving Euronymous previous to him, getting involved in Norwegian black metal. Like, in other words, I don't think the filmmakers thought it was relevant to know what his backstory is, what are his motivating factors. You just you're introduced to this character, and the narrative is he's reacting against the setting. Mm-hmm. Norway is this. I reject it out of hand, so I'm going to create this sort of editorial on the falseness of my society. And it's like, okay, he wasn't born that way, though.
No.
This had to have come from somewhere. I would have liked to have seen a little bit of what he was like before all this started. Was he picked on? Was he somebody who sort of was a part of a group, and there was another central figure, and he coveted the attention that person got? I wanted to see the first few minutes of the movie. I needed to be the thing that drives him to say, I'm going to take my ball over here and form my own group, and I'll be at the center of it, and I'll have that attention that I'm craving. Okay. We don't get that from the movie at all.
You're talking about Varg?
Euronymous.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I don't know. My personal opinion was that, he I don't know why he did the things that he did, other than just to, show society up, I guess. Mm-hmm. Let me ask you a question. What do you think of Rory Culkin's portrayal of Euronymous?
I'll answer you by first saying what makes Euronymous in the movie a really interesting character is, one, you have this one line of logic where he's like, Norway is false, black metal is truth. I come to bring truth. Then there's the other side of his mouth where he is like, look, I'm just trying to sell records here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm marketing a thing that's let's not take this too seriously.
He was in over his head. That was the gist that I got halfway through the movie. What he thought was going to be, and I think he says he lost control.
Yeah.
After all of what he was doing, trying to appear like he was in control of everything, he was not. And he starts to realize that as time goes by. And, of course, I think that's what happens at the end. He finally realizes he doesn't have control. He's and it's time to let go. Unfortunately, things don't work out in the end for him.
Yeah.
But yeah, he, had no. It was just like he was hanging on, barely hanging on. I was just waiting for him to go, okay, I'm done. What the fuck is going on? What have I done?
And that was the sort of the third aspect of his personality in this movie, is this sort of paranoid, egotistical person, where he gets kind of lost within all the lies and nonsense. Where, like when Varg starts his sort of reign of terror, Euronymous becomes paranoid. The cops are after him, and we haven't gotten to it yet. But then there's the whole aspect of how Dead influenced his life, and how Dead's death affected him, and clearly traumatizing for him. And that gets represented in the movie and sort of this sort of typical, flashes of film and changing of color schemes and. Some gross imagery. But that's all sort of to represent trauma, in my opinion, for Euronymous. So I think as far as leading characters go, if the film itself is sort of razor thin on plot, and it's just sort of a series of events that are depicted to get you from point A to point B, he's at least an interesting character, and I enjoyed kind of his journey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, he starts out with a great idea, and then it snowballs, much like I'm sure anybody's career in music, especially when you go from not known or in the back room of bars to something that is being talked about all over where you live, and just to see that take its toll on him, it was interesting, and to see how he would handle it. Or tried to handle it.
So let's. I want to talk a little bit more about Varg, but before we do, let's get Dead out of the way.
Oh, Dead! Oh my gosh. Okay, are we about ready to talk about one of the most disturbing parts, I think, of this movie?
Okay,
that bothered me.
Yeah, actually, let's put a pin in Dead for a moment and discussing sort of the plot and theme of this movie. And I just kind of want to. I'm going to turn the whole mic over to you for a second. Can you just sort of flesh out for me in total what all was disturbing you about this movie?
Mostly the killing scenes. That was really the biggest issue. I say issue, but I mean that was the hardest thing for me to actually sit and watch. And it started with Dead. I mean, when Dead commits suicide, it was unnerving. It was Sunday during the day. I told Mindy, I said, we ain't got much to watch. Let's watch Lords of Chaos. It's a great Sunday movie.
Sure. Did you watch it after church or before church?
While at church on my phone.
Perfect.
Yeah. So we start the movie and we get to where Dead kills himself. And
just out of curiosity, did Mindy say at some point say to you, like, I need you to stop doing podcasts with Mark. This is fucking ridiculous.
No. She didn't get I don't know if she knew she could put up with a lot of stuff. So
okay.
She was sitting there watching it with me, and we get to where Dead's in the room all by himself. Now I could tell. I didn't know anything about Dead.
Right.
I didn't know what was going to happen. I knew a little bit about the scene afterwards, but aside from all that, I didn't know how it all went down. So they show Dead commit suicide, which I'm assuming this is an accurate portrayal, but for the life of me, I don't know how in the hell somebody could do this to themselves. Where he slits his wrist. Now, he slits his first wrist. I mean, he's bleeding all over the place. And he is, I can't remember, he goes to do something, and then he goes for the other arm. And about that time, my wife goes, I can't watch. And I said, all right, well, I powered through it. He slits his other wrist. Then he goes and slits his own throat, sits over and writes a letter, sorry for the blood, let the party begin, and then goes and grabs a shotgun and blows his own brains out. The the gore. This is where I was like, "There's no way Mark's going to get through this." I thought for sure you'd be like, "Oh my gosh, I can't watch."
All right, I'm not going to lie.
Turned your head, didn't you?
Worse. I watched it on my phone this morning on Hulu, and Hulu has a 30-second forward. But as soon as he cut into his arm, because you got to remember, in the scene prior, they're depicting a famous concert that they did, or sort of an amalgamation of concerts that they did, where he cut himself on stage and threw the pig's head at the posers.
Yep.
And I'm like, well, I got through that once, and then he starts cutting himself again, and I'm like, and I don't need to see this. Ugh. I'm like, at this point, I get the point. And I think for graphicness, you say, like, this is what cutting your arms looks like and all of that. Okay, I get it, but I've seen plenty of people cut themselves in person.
That?
Yeah. I've seen a lot of bloody arms in my profession, for one reason or another, and I got the point. I didn't need to see it portrayed on film. I'm not saying they should have cut it. I think it served the narrative. I think it spoke to Dad's mental health problems, but it was one of those where it was kind of like for me, like watching Modern Family, where it just gets too cringy, and I'm like, and 30 seconds.
That set the tone for the rest of the murder scenes that happen in this movie. I think they did this on purpose. They made it feel very long and uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Number two, if you watch that scene, if I remember correctly, there's no music. There's no like uptick of all dramatic tension music at all. It's just him slicing into himself.
Did you watch Insatiable?
No, I did not. I have not watched that.
There's a scene in the first season of Insatiable where Debbie Ryan eats an entire sheet cake, and Sean and I debated the length of that scene. There's no sound. There's just the sound of her existing and eating this cake.
Well, there you go. I mean, and it probably got uncomfortable after probably 10, 15 seconds.
10 seconds. It was about as long as I lasted. And, and it goes on for about an hour and a half.
It feels like it.
Yeah. It goes on for a really, really long time, like uncomfortably long. And Sean and I spent a good portion of both of season 1 and season 2 talking about that one scene, because it's a very effective scene as far as eating disorders and self-loathing and depression and all of that. But for me, it was like, you get the point in 10 seconds. It doesn't need to be longer. And he was like, but it does, the longer it is, the more effective I think it becomes. And I was like, it's kind of like knocking somebody out. Once they're out, you're just punching them to punch them.
Yeah.
You're not... You're not really being any more effective. So my point is, it was, with the scene with him, it was like, once I saw him cut into his arm the second time in as many scenes, I was like, all right, I don't, so by the time you go through the 30-second forward, he's already on the cot or the mattress or whatever, with his head blown into. Mm-hmm. So I'll turn it back to you, but yeah, I didn't need to see. Once I saw where it was going, I'm like, all right, I get it. He's going to kill himself.
It's a very conscious move on the filmmakers. I mean, just to make it feel, uncomfortable. And the second thing is, I mean, it's real. At least it's trying to depict what actually happened to this guy. And
yeah, he's clearly uncomfortable in his own skin.
Yeah, and I thought to myself, I couldn't imagine somebody actually doing that to themselves. So there's. That was unnerving, and there's other death scenes that just, again, continue to go way longer than, comfortableness can actually sustain. It's the stabbing of the guy in the park. That was, just horrifying to think that this guy. I don't know how many times he screamed out for help. Nobody obviously heard him, but he's just continuing to get stabbed over and over and over. He gets up at one point, and then he gets
Can I ask you a stupid question?
Please.
What was so bad about that?
Him getting stabbed over and over and then getting up,
dude,
trying to fight the guy off, and then...
You've watched horror movies. You've watched action movies. What was bad about that particular scene? Because I'll tell you, and maybe I'm a sick fuck, but that and when... Later on, when Varg is stabbing Euronymous, my thought was, well, Jesus Christ, it takes a while to kill a human being when you've got a small knife. My God, is that ineffective?
I think it was just the fact that this person who decided to take a life at that point, had to stab this person over and over and over and over and over and over. How many times did Euronymous get stabbed? Did they say he got stabbed like 26 times in the back?
Something like that. Plus,
I was looking.
Plus elsewhere.
Yeah.
But
I was going to say.
I want to drill down into this, and I don't want to make you uncomfortable. That's not the point. But
that's fine.
But I am curious. Again, you've watched excessive violence in TV and movies before. I want you to take a breath and just sort of dig into your own mind why that scene bothered you more than other stuff you've seen of a violent, graphic nature.
The only thing I can think of is the fact that it's based on real life events.
Okay.
That would probably be it, to know that this is something that actually happened to somebody. And if they are depicting it as it occurred, if the amount of stab wounds that happened in the movie match up with the amount of stab wounds that actually happened to Euronymous, that's, it's hard for me to really want to see that.
Okay.
So
it's different when you know it's fiction?
Yes. And again, the purposeful nature of the filmmaker to put that on film as long as it occurred. I could have got it, just like you said, in 10 seconds. Or it could have just showed him, going down to the ground with the knife and then cut. The guy's on the ground, he's going down to the knife, going down with the knife, cut it, you're done. The guy's going to die. You cut to the news broadcast the next day. Dude's dead. I could have handled that a little bit better. But, man, if you're going to sit there and you're going to show him stabbing, and, I mean, it's obscene how many times this motherfucker gets stabbed. So that, I guess, is probably... And, at the end of fucking Euronymous getting stabbed as many times, and he's pleading with Varg. I thought we were friends.
The best part of that. The best part of that fucking scene is him making Strawberry Quick.
And he's just trying to get the fucking key to get out of the fucking apartment.
What a use of tension in the scene.
Yes, absolutely. And then you're like, oh, he's got it unlocked, and boom, here he comes again. And then at the very end, I mean, he stabs him like right in the fucking skull. Ugh. And Varg, it's so...
Didn't you do a watch along to Friday the 13th?
I did. There was nothing... I honestly don't think that there were that long of killing scenes in Friday the 13th.
Okay, so some of this...
There was a lot of tension. There was a lot of, holy shit, here comes the bad guy.
Right.
But there wasn't like
when Jason stabs... I was going to say, when Jason stabs somebody, it's one shot with the machete and they're done. Yeah,
Jason stabs somebody, goes grab some Strawberry Quick. Don't see that very often. It was... I've seen people die, and again, it's thinking that somebody actually had to endure this. That's bothersome for me. I don't like... I give you a hard time about MMA. Mm-hmm. And reality, dude, I don't like watching people fuck each other up. Not my thing.
Well, now I know what the divide between me and you is. I enjoy... I'm with Winfrey on this, and Pat. I enjoy the violence. I like people. I like watching people get punched in the face. That's why I watch boxing. So it was a disconnect. It was a disconnect from me in the way that it was a connection for you, in the sense of, because I get what you're saying. Like, artistically, it's like, I don't want to say flat, because flat would, Flat makes it sound like it was almost like a B movie thing, you know, where it's just not shot very well or something. But it's purposefully brutal. Mm-hmm. You know, especially the park stabbing scene is meant to convey like the antisocial nature of these kids and how disconnected they were from society, how within them the social contract had just burnt away, and they were pursuing adrenaline. You know, and for this kid, he, you know, when Euronymous talks about like we should just kill people, and you know they're looking to feel something. For whatever reasons, they're not feeling a closeness, a connectedness to anything, and so I'm comparing this to like drug addiction. Mm-hmm. You know, when people abuse drugs, it's usually because drugs make them feel good. Yeah. So when you think about, I mean, I made a joke about how ineffective that knife was, but I think it's also the feeling of power you have and the adrenaline you get from stabbing somebody, and you want to keep feeling it, so you keep doing it. And it would have been interesting if the filmmakers had actually delved into that a little bit. Like, did he feel more powerful with each stab, or did the feeling dissipate over the series of stabbings? You know, was it more just sort of was it more of a collective? You know, the incident itself gave him a high, and he was more doing it just because the guy was still alive and he wanted to make sure he was dead. That sort of thing. I do understand where you're coming from personally, where if watching the suffering of human beings is not particular, you know, through violence is not particularly appealing to you, then yeah, sure, I get why that scene's rough, and I get why the scene with Varg killing Euronymous is rough for you. Mm-hmm. It did not have that effect on me at all.
My concern with you was actually the gore. I was like, he's probably not going to have the best time with the gore.
Yeah, I didn't. I mean, I think I was more interested in Euronymous' depicted reaction to Dead's death. And later on in the film, when they show his true reaction, where he's sitting there crying over the body, it made me sad. I was sad for him. Yeah,
again, that's obviously a purposeful move by the filmmakers to make you think, well, this guy is just this uncaring black metal Jesus that's doing, you know, just taking advantage of his dead friend's body by taking the skull and wrapping it up. And so you're led to believe that. And that's what he wants everybody to believe initially. But then, obviously, as the film progresses, you get to see, well, actually what the true reaction was. And he even tells Varg, Varg pulls that necklace out that supposedly got part of Dead's skull wrapped in it. And Euronymous is just like, it's fucking chicken bone, man. You're just like, wow. You know, this guy, he, at the beginning of things, he's giving a ton of shit to posers. Varg himself, who walked up with a Scorpion's jacket on, you know, he's given all this shit to posers. And Varg is correct, I think. You know, Euronymous was a poser when this was all said and done. And I think that's why Euronymous got out when he did.
But isn't this a lesson in not falling into extreme beliefs?
Well, Varg's got problems. Varg has problems at the beginning.
You're laying a lot of this at Euronymous' feet.
No, Varg has way too many mental issues. You can right after you see him like ditch the Scorpions thing, I was like, oh well, that's telling right now. He's so enamored with Euronymous, but you know, then it becomes just he's got to beat Euronymous, and it was probably set that first day when they met. He was like, the fuck if you're going to tell me what I can like, and I'll show you.
Right. Well, there's an important detail there. He fell in love with the philosophy. As bullshit as it was. You know, I mean, I think Euronymous was like, you know, is just sort of espousing like fast food philosophy when he talks about this stuff. But basically, it's all marketing. At least that's the way the film depicts it.
Yeah.
And then, but Varg is like, no. So I remember when I was in college, my friend Tom and I decided, we were going to call ourselves Jedis. Don't ask. We're fucking dorks. But like we were clinging. Yeah,
that
like
was
Star
just going to
Wars.
be a nickname for yourselves, or what
No,
the hell do you
we
mean?
decided to believe in the Jedi faith. I'm a fucking loser. Beat me up when you meet me.
Did you get them tickets as soon as they went on sale, Mark?
I certainly did. In the middle of your podcast.
I remember.
But I'm not proud of those moments of my life.
We've all had goofy shit happen and done stupid stuff, so that's no deal.
Right, but it was about wanting to belong to something, to have something to believe in. He is not particularly religious, and boy, when it comes to fast food philosophies, he's eaten a buffet of them. I was only this dorky once, but it was definitely along the lines of like conventional religion didn't speak to us. At that time, in on both of our, we're the same age. We're like literally 2 months apart. Conventional society had nothing for us. Conventional religion had nothing for us, and so we were looking for things to believe in, to add to our personalities and social surroundings that we just couldn't find in conventional society. And so we both, having been big Star Wars fans and liking the whole concept of the Jedi before George Lucas took a shit on it. Speaking of, don't fall in love with philosophies, because you'll fall, because someone will just rip the rug right out from under you.
Yep.
We for a very short period of time, we were like, we're gonna follow the Jedi belief. And if the next question is, did we build lightsabers? The answer is fucking no. We weren't that bad, but we liked it. Basically, it was like a junk food paganism.
Okay.
Okay. Like if you listen to the stuff that like Yoda talks about, being a Jedi is about tapping into the energies that surround the universe. Mm-hmm. Again, it's sort of a pagan philosophy. I think in reading about where Lucas got a lot of the stuff that he made the Jedi order up with, a lot of it I think comes out of Buddhism. So, but again, Buddhism, half paganism, junk food, crapola philosophy. And I think that's where, sort of going back around to where this is to the movie, I think Varg is sort of where we were, but just in a more extreme way. And he clearly had more mental health issues than we did. We're just dorks. He clearly needed something to cling to, but where Euronymous, I think, needed something to cling to, but was looking for a way to be a star within his own circle, like we were talking about before.
Yeah,
Varg was angry. Varg felt the need to just burn society to the ground, and it's like he already had, I think, in the back of his mind, a vision for what needed to happen. Yeah,
and he wanted to take. He thought initially Euronymous was just going to be the guy that was going to be on board.
Right. Like he just needed the structure of the philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? In other words, like he's sitting there with matches and gasoline and just going, I just need to know what to burn down and where and why I'm doing it, but I know it needs to burn. Mm-hmm. And then Euronymous comes along and says, Norwegian society at large, it's too happy and too good and too rich, and it all needs to go. And Varg's like, fuck yeah, man.
Specifically Christianity coming in here and
right,
and dispense. I think the words were they're dispensing their joy or something along those lines. Like it was a crime for Christianity to come in there and do what they did. I understand what Varg's saying. That it makes him upset, the fact that their culture had been changed by that. Doesn't I'm not again condoning church burning, as Mark Radulich seemed to want me to do in my intro there. But no, I mean, yeah.
Damn it, Varg, can't you drink like other Native Americans? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it just gets taken to like the 10th level, and when Euronymous decides this needs to stop, Varg is far from even letting that happen.
Yeah.
And at one point, I think in the inner circle, the black circle, he says, "Okay, hey, we need to lay low for a while," and Varg calls him out on his shit again. He's like, "What are you, chicken? We need to own this." But the funniest damn thing was when Varg calls him up and says, "Yeah, I want to go to the press," and he gets the fucking press over there, which was fucking hilarious.
That is my favorite part of the movie. It's when the reporter walks, because it's so the kid that plays Varg. Which I think I was telling you offline, the actual Varg didn't like the fact that Emery Cohen played him because he's a Jew. Mm-hmm. Emery Cohen is so good, and I got to see what else he's been in because he's fucking amazing in this.
I recognized him, and I was like, "Where is he from?" I went into those credits. He was, he was in the OA,
yeah,
which is a show that I devoured. It's only got, I think, 2 seasons now, but I mean, it's a great show. But he was in something else too I recognized. But yeah, he's a great actor, and man, does he have an evil freaking laugh.
But but what's great about him and what's great about that scene is, against the backdrop of the Norwegian black metal scene, they make him very confident over the course of the film. They make him very self-righteous. But when he's with the reporter, and the reporter even just minimally pinpricks his philosophy and beliefs, like he's like, "Well, what do you believe? What's going on here?" And he starts talking about the Viking history, Nazism, and something else. I don't remember what it was. And the reporter just looks at him and is like, "It's rather broad."
Yeah.
And he falls back on, well, of course a reporter wouldn't get it. And the reporter is like you could just see the eyes rolling in the reporter's head.
Oh, no doubt.
I remember my cousin was like 12, 13 years old or something. Might have been a little bit younger. And she started talking about how human society is poison, animals are pure. And I wanted to push her into fucking traffic. Just throw her right in the pool. And it was one of those, and I'm bringing that up because it was one of those moments.
Yeah.
Where, like, clearly the person you're talking to thinks they're hot shit, and is a deep thinker, and they're fucking retarded.
Oh, Varg looks so uncomfortable. Like
yes.
And it's so funny. He sets up everything so when the reporter comes in, he's like got the windows blacked out. He's got a flag. He's got a sword by his side. But as the reporter's making his way up the stairs, he's making sure everything's just set up right, so it looks so imposing and so scary. But throughout the conversation, you can just tell he's like full of shit. Like he doesn't, he feels like he has some kind of belief that he has to stand rightfully on. But just like you said, as soon as somebody challenges it, but wait a second. I could tell you where, I could tell you about the first church that burned. I'll tell you something nobody else knows.
Yeah, as soon as he's like fucking dismissed by the reporter as being just some schmucky kid, he's like, and then he gives himself away as the fucking church burner.
Yeah. Like, tell us about the members of the Black Circle. And he's like, and then all of a sudden he stops. He's like, fuck. He knew he wasn't supposed to be part of the Black Circle at one point, but now he is.
Right. The other thing about that is we're going to need pictures. And he was like, okay. And instead of like getting a mask or something, he just like got his hair in front of his face. And I'm watching this. I'm like, you idiot.
The reporters go down to the car and they're laughing their ass off. It's like, can you believe this fucking kid? And then the next day, I think it's the next day, he's arrested. All right,
we kind of got away from Dead, and I just want to talk about him because first of all, the kid who plays Dead, Jack Kilmer, is amazing and really deserves an award for this performance.
Yeah,
he's pretty incredible.
Yeah, I think there was well acting all the way around. I like Dead's performance. I didn't know obviously, I didn't know much about Mayhem going into this, so I didn't know about Dead and all the issues that he was suffering from. Clearly, depression was one of them. But yeah, he portrayed it very well. I had no doubt in my mind that this guy was a little messed up in the head.
So he's done a bunch of shit I've never heard of.
Now, this is Jack Kilmer, Val Kilmer's son?
John Wallace Kilmer is an American actor known for starring in the 2013 film Palo Alto and for playing Pelle Dead Olin in the 2018 Norwegian black metal biopic Lords of Chaos.
Go down to early life.
Yep. Yes, he is, sir.
All right, there we go.
He was born to Joanne Whalley and Val Kilmer.
Okay, all right. Yeah, he did a pretty good job. I think. I mean, did you? The whole. You said you read the book on this. That this movie is based on, right? Okay. The whole taking the picture of the dead body. I assume that is something that happened, right?
I believe so. I mean, without getting into the details of it and trying to read through stuff. Lords of Chaos, by the way, came out in 1998. I read it the year that it came out. As soon as I heard about this book, I went out and bought it. Okay. When buying books was still a thing.
Yeah, I remember those days.
And then you'll get to read it too after Christmas because I'm sending it to you for a Christmas present.
Oh, wow. Lucky me.
Yep. That and my History of Death Metal book.
Love it. Love it.
So, Merry Christmas.
I appreciate that. I do. I really do. I need more books, especially on music.
Yes. But just talking about Dead, so we can kind of put a pin in this and then last words on the movie. The kid who plays him is really, really good. I think he gives a haunting and stellar performance. The character of Dead, I thought, was a and again, I can't help but look at the characters in this film through. Part of it is sort of a film study eye, and part of it is through the guise of mental illness.
Yeah, I figured that you probably had that hat on as well.
Yeah, and I couldn't help. I mean, he clearly had some. I mean, he talks about having depression. I'm wondering if it was like bipolar disorder. I'm also wondering if he had a personality disorder as well. Someone listening to this who also works in the mental health field. No shit, Radulich. I don't fucking know. It was a movie. But in the mental illness is so stigmatized, even now in 2019. I mean, what did it take for people to sort of recognize that we have a huge mental illness problem just in this country alone? A lot of gun deaths. Mm-hmm. So, and that's 2019 we're talking about. So this kid grows up in the early 90s, and clearly he's got mental health. And I don't know what mental health treatment's like in Sweden, but I'm sure he is the victim of, or was the victim of, like, benign neglect.
Yeah,
where people just didn't know what to do with him. You live in a European paradise where the government takes care of you and makes sure you don't die. What are you so upset about?
Yeah, it was mentioned that he was picked on a lot as a kid in the movie. I think they said that he was beat up a lot. And yeah, that's definitely going to leave its mark on you, especially as you grow older. And
his arms were all cut up. I don't know if you noticed that.
Oh yeah, I saw the cutting, the marks of the cutting, and I told Mindy, I said he's a cutter. Well, yeah, we find out that during that concert, we might know why. And very obsessed. Oh man, I mean, when he's inhaling the bag with the dead crow in it, like over and over and over, that's a level. I mean, a level I'm not going to go to. I'm just not. I guess if you want to live the life and this is your, I don't understand that type of life. I may be a metalhead. I may enjoy my fair share of metal, but stuff like that
it's clearly not your guiding philosophy of life. Mm-mm. It's a thing you listen to that brings you enjoyment. It isn't how you interact with the world. Mm-hmm. And yeah. I don't really think it was for this guy either. He's not. It wasn't so much an obsession with music so much as it was with the concept of death.
Yeah,
that he felt, and I feel like this is a common thing with people who struggle. And I won't even get into the how do you quantify individual resiliency with people, because boy, is that a whole other topic. But I think there are people in this world who are so damaged that
this life in and of itself becomes poison to them. And they start imagining, well, what if I were otherworldly? Then I wouldn't be in so much pain. And so he's obsessed with death as sort of a way of distancing himself from a very, very painful life.
Yeah.
And so doing things like... And then I think some of it just becomes, stagecraft, just like... inhaling the bag with the dead bird, and it's, it becomes kind of gimmickry.
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, if I'm going to do this, then I need to, live the gimmick until Jim Crockett Promotions goes out of business.
According to the wiki, most of what
That's a Ric Flair joke, everybody.
According to the wiki, most of what was depicted in the movie was at least accurate according to the wiki here. Mm-hmm. He does, and I think I remember this. It says, controversially, an image from the aftermath of the suicide was used as the cover of the bootleg live album Dawn of the Blackhearts. Ugh.
Hey, remember when we covered Cannibal Corpse and I made you look at all the Cannibal Corpse covers?
Oh, yeah. Lots of fun there. Yeah, we got to describe each and every single one of them.
Yep.
Oh, boy.
Good old Tomb of the Mutilated.
This band goes... after watching the movie, okay, I immediately, go onto Google. And if anything this movie will do, it will spark the want to find out what happened next. Because our storyteller throughout the whole movie is Euronymous, who ends up dying at the end. We get a short, a short kind of epilogue, and then told not to focus on the sappy shit. Hey, this is fucking death metal after all. But we see where Varg gets arrested. The guy that committed the murder in the park gets arrested. So I immediately was like, I got to figure out what the fuck happened with Varg. Okay. Now, do you remember how many years he got sentenced for?
21. He got the max.
The fucking maximum was 21 years. That, in America's justice system, I mean, I don't think that would have even touched what he would have got, because he gets found out for the church burnings too, as well, doesn't he?
No, they couldn't get him on the church burnings. They didn't have, according to the movie, they didn't have evidence. They only got him on the murder.
They just got him on the murder, and they give him 21 years, the maximum. So, guy gets out in 2009, I believe, and he releases some albums after that. Bellis in 2010, Fallen in 2011, Umskiptar in 2012. Just recently, though, dude had a YouTube channel that got shut down as of June 2019. Due to, of course, the YouTube regulation that says it is going to be removing extremist content and hate speech, which violated its terms of service. So any of you out there that wanted a little bit of an epilogue after watching the movie and listening to us, there's at least a little piece of it.
So Mayhem is still around. It's currently,
yes, they are.
It currently consists of Necro Butcher, who was the bassist. And he's the one in the movie that leaves the band.
Was it?
After
okay.
Dead took off. After Dead died.
He took off. He took off.
When the band reforms in the late 90s, it's him and Hellhammer are the only two original. There's 97 people who have been in this band, apparently. But as far as, the Mayhem, the quintessential Mayhem of Euronymous, Necro Butcher, Hellhammer, and Dead / Count Grishnak. Necro Butcher and Hellhammer are the two members, the only two surviving members of this band. Mm-hmm. What do you call it? So Hellhammer's the drummer, by the way.
Okay.
They briefly show Attila Kisar. He was the singer
when they're in the studio and Count Grishnak's playing the
Oh, yeah.
was playing the bass, I think it was.
Yeah, they're evilly looking at each other while,
So he was in the band from 92 to 93. Apparently 93 is when they had like a hard break. And then they came back together in 1995. Is what I'm seeing here.
Yeah, 93 is the murder that occurs where...
Yeah.
So they're like, yep, okay, we're done. But they come back. I'm surprised, actually, at how fast the band comes back onto the scene. To be honest, I mean, 2 years after the murder happens, Mayhem's back and dropping stuff and reformed.
What are you gonna do?
You're going to distance yourself from Mayhem as much as you can.
Okay, are you looking at the Wikipedia page?
I have it in front of me. Yeah.
Okay, can you see the picture of Varg?
The one with the camouflage ball?
Yeah, fucking, he looks like a hillbilly.
Yeah, he does. Yeah,
God, he looks like he should be wrestling gators in Florida, or like giving fucking boat tours in Louisiana.
Yeah, I read up on the history of this guy and what happened afterwards in his imprisonment. And
yeah, he's still a nutcase, isn't he?
I mean, he's definitely an extremist. He's got his feelings, just like you said, about the Jews and the Muslims. Which, did you read his take on, though, what he said happened in actuality, according to him?
Go ahead.
Okay, well, I want to read it and make sure I had it right. But basically, his take was that there was, there was an argument. There was an argument that occurred between him and Euronymous, and it became a scuffle. I'm trying to find what he specifically said. But, he didn't want it. He definitely made it sound like it wasn't his fault. It got out of hand. The whole torturing with the taser, that whole thing that he used and believed that was going to happen, and that's what made him go kill Euronymous before it could happen. That, according to the wiki, did happen. So here we go. All right. Euronymous. Okay. Varg said he met Euronymous at the door to hand him the signed contract, but when he stepped forward and confronted Euronymous, Euronymous panicked and kicked him in the chest. Varg claims Euronymous ran into the kitchen to fetch a knife. The two got into a struggle, and Varg stabbed Euronymous to death. His body was found in the stairwell of the first floor with 23 stab wounds, 2 to the head, 5 to the neck, and 16 to the back. Now, that obviously got out of hand pretty quickly.
That escalated quickly.
Yeah, you'd think that, okay, if it wasn't, and that's probably the way the jury saw it, if there is a jury. I have no idea how they do things over there. But, you look at that and you think, okay, you weren't expecting to get into a fight. You got into a fight. You stabbed the guy. That should be the end of it. One maybe stab should be the end of that fight. But it ends up being 23 stab wounds. So clearly there was some emotional attachment to what was going on between the two, and he just let loose. Varg claims his final stab to the skull was so powerful, the knife remained stuck in Euronymous' skull, but no physical evidence or bodily injuries support his claim. So apparently that didn't happen, according to them. Varg contends that most of Euronymous' wounds were caused by broken glass. We saw that. He had fallen during the struggle. After the murder, Varg and Blackthorne, this is the guy his driver, drove back to Bergen. On the way, they stopped at a lake where Varg disposed of the bloodstained clothes. Oh, yeah. The claim of self-defense is doubted by Emperor Drummer Faust. But Mayhem bassist Necrobutcher believes Varg killed Euronymous due to the aforementioned death threats he received from him. And the other guy was like, the guy that drove him, he's quoted, I was neither for nor against it. I didn't give a shit about Oyston. In other words, Euronymous. So, there you go, Mark Radulich. What do you think, man? You got anything else you want to talk about?
Virkinus harshly criticized the film as made-up crap. Objecting to being portrayed by a Jewish actor and to plot elements calling the depiction character murder. Okay, says the Nazi living in France.
Yeah, he got the fuck out, man. He changed his name. What's he going by now? He's going by something different. Is it Berkness or something?
I don't know. Probably a fucking cat piss. I hate Jewy.
Well, anyway.
Him and you know what? In retrospect, I wish him and the Ultimate Warrior had a podcast together.
Oh boy.
Could you imagine? I would listen to it religiously.
I would, subscribe to that fucking Patreon.
Could you imagine? I want the alternate universe where the Ultimate Warrior's right-wing fucking lunatic podcasts are merged with this idiot. So good.
Wonderful. It would be,
better than anything we've ever done. Fucking loser Jedi that I am, and you who doesn't like people and doesn't like violence, you fucking hippie.
Goodness. That's right, damn it.
All right, Flower Child. Anything else?
Nah, man. I had as disturbing as this was, that was clearly the intent of the film. I learned a lot. So, and again, as always, Mark Radulich, I am glad to experience something and discuss it with you. So, let's just pick. Can we do something a little more happy next time?
Sure, Jesse. I don't make you watch things that are unpleasant.
And that was my Facebook post was shivers. That was unpleasant after I watched this.
Well, hey, the next thing we have 2 TV parties coming up in the month of November. We got one for the boys.
Oh boy, that's a good one.
And then we got Wu-Tang: An American Saga. Decidedly less depressing than this movie was.
True.
And then we got Titans Season 2.
I have no idea what's going on there.
Yeah, I have to get caught up with Titans. And then we got The Runaway Season 3. So we got plenty of pleasant stuff, Jesse.
This is the darkest corner I think we've ever gone into with TV Party. I really do. I can you think of anything else that was as dark as this?
Not that you've been a part of, no. But okay. Pat and
Winfrey. I'm sure Winfrey's got some fun stuff there with the fucking Hannibal.
I was going to say, I mean, we've done the entire Hannibal series. Pat, him, and I all did the Ted Bundy movie that was on Netflix. So, I mean, occasionally we touch on this stuff. I know that, on some of the Facebook groups that I'm in, there's a lot of talk about, like, true crime podcasts. I think somebody asked me if I was interested in doing that, and I fucking, no. I have 900 other things I'm doing.
One dropped locally, and it was just the first off, it was about kind of a local crime, but it took off, dude. I mean, it really did. So a lot of people listen to those.
Yeah, no, there's a few people I know personally who that's all they listen to as far as podcast goes.
My favorite murder.
Yeah, our true crime podcast or whatever. There's one that it's not a true crime podcast necessarily, but there's one that I listen to that's not about wrestling or geek stuff. It's called Dark Side of. So, like, they do things in blocks. Like, they did a block of Dark Side of music. So it talked about Elvis. It talked about the jazz scene. Talked about Pink Floyd. Prior to that, it was the Dark Side of Hollywood. It talked about the fucking shit show that was the filming of The Wizard of Oz, where they fucking abused Judy Garland. Judy Garland, yeah, stuff like that. So I listen to that, when I have time, when I'm not doing other stuff. I gotta watch The Shining in 2 weeks. How about that?
Oh yeah, have you ever seen that?
Bits and pieces, years and years and years and years and years ago. So I'm gonna watch it all the way through in preparation for an on trial. I'm not really looking forward to it, but apparently Gavin just jerks off to it. So whatever.
I watched it back in 2000. I think it was 2090.
Here's Johnny. Oh, sorry.
Got to time it just right. Yeah, I think I watched it back in 98 or 99, and I think we watched the director's cut. Not the director's cut. We watched it with the fucking... Man, this was back when DVDs were like, just brand new, and commentaries were on there. And I think we watched it with a commentary as well. and I liked it. I thought it was actually pretty. It's a neat movie, especially for as old as it was at that time, and now that it is, it's a classic.
All right. So as Jesse said, that's it for our TV party for Night Alone with Kids. I enjoyed the conversation. I thought this was a nice film deconstruction that you and I did, a nice conversation that we had about it, even though if it was an unpleasant subject. So, I hope to do more of this in the future, the occasional sort of Netflix or Hulu type movie that we can kind of sit and dig our teeth into. Something a little bit different than the way we do things on Damn You Hollywood. So
I'm down.
Not going to read off fucking reviews from Rotten Tomatoes, I'll tell you that much. The one time I tried this as a Damn You Hollywood and then tried to look into the money of a made-for-TV movie, I'm like, well, I'm never doing that again.
I understand.
So, with that said, this is it for this week. The next podcast will be Sunday night. It'll be myself and the Chris's talking Crown Jewel. We got Terminator: The Burning Earth, Terminator: Dark Fate. Speaking of murdering, As I Lay Dying, Shaped by Fire.
Oh, boy.
Every time I did the joke about who hasn't thought about murdering their wife, I could hear you sweat in your underpants.
You hear the crickets, too.
Yeah. I hear like, Mark and his stupid sense of humor.
I love my wife.
All right, take it easy. No one's questioning that. And then there'll be an on trial for 13 hours. Andrew Graham will be joining us. He'll be taking the prosecutor's position. I just get to sit back and listen to him and Sean argue. Hopefully I won't pass out while doing so. So that'll be fun. We might be doing some boxing coverage. I'm not promising anything, but Naoi Inoue versus Nonito Donaire will be on DAZN somewhere in Japan.
You were talking big Latin there for a second.
Inoue. I'm giving a Catholic sermon. Will be Inoue versus Nonito Donaire will be on DAZN from 7 to 9 a.m. Thursday morning. So, I got appointments at Moffat all day long, but if I can watch that fight before I head off to Moffat, we might do some coverage of it. I got to convince Winfrey to wake up at like dark early in the morning to cover it, though. Fucking Utah time.
Yeah, buddy.
And then November 16th, Jesse and I are going to do a watch-along to Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship 9. Right, Jesse?
Savagery.
Just kidding.
Oh. Well, see, now we've gone from, like, okay, well-contained, like you got your gloves on, your knee pads, we'll do some UFC, and now it's just like, how about we just take everything off and hit each other with our fists?
They are wearing hand guards. They're
guards.
Yes, they're wearing padding on the top of their hands and I think in the palm. What's unguarded is the knuckles. Like make a fist, right? And
yep.
so your knuckles and like the tops of your fingers at the top of the bend, that's all that's uncovered.
Sounds
awesome.
Well, yeah, I don't count on me being there. I'll just put it that way. Put it that way. Might want to have a backup plan.
No one will watch Bare Knuckle with me. Either.
And everybody else is like, they don't like it because they're snobs about it. And I'm just like, fuck, man.
You're the only one that's like, I'm not watching human beings punch each other in the face. Everyone else is just like, I'm not watching trash.
Why? What? Okay, can you just 50 words or less tell me why they think it's trash? Because I would figure it's just the same thing as UFC. I imagine, right?
It's a lot of.
You can't do. It's obviously boxing. You can't do kicks or whatever.
Well, because the actual fighting technique is trash. There's not a lot of technique involved.
Okay, all right then.
A lot of these guys are just fucking swinging for the fences. Because it doesn't take a whole lot to knock a human being out.
That should be entertaining.
The other side of it is these are not young fellas. These are a lot of washouts from MMA. Like the last one was headlined by Bigfoot fucking Silva and Gabriel Gonzaga, who, if you don't know who they are, both of them are like veteran MMA fighters. Bigfoot, I think, was in Elite XC and then Strikeforce. And then he had a fair amount of success in the UFC, but not recently. He's also fucking old. And then Gabriel Gonzaga has been around, I think, as long as the sport has.
Yeah.
Gabriel Gonzaga also. Mirko Cro Cop came over to the UFC, fucking hearts on fire. He was hot to trot, man. He had been left kicking, murdering people over in Pride. Came over to the UFC, ready to go. Gabriel Gonzaga fucking put that to rest right quick. And Mirko Cro Cop got hit so hard by Gabriel Gonzaga, he developed PTSD.
Oh my gosh.
After that, he was never the same. He never fought the same again. He was a fucking washout.
Poor guy.
Yeah. At this point, if Mirko Cro Cop is watching a can dance, he starts having flashbacks.
Keep that guy away from Vegas.
My son said to me today, he said, "Hey, Dad, what did one tooth say to the other?" And I said, "I don't know, Jonas. What did one tooth say to the other?" He says, "You're very sharp."
Oh, Jonas. Killing it.
Yeah. I told him he has to do his first taped comedy stand-up from Madison Square Garden. He has to name his special "The Champ Is Here." He was like, "Fucking why?"
Wait a second.
He's like, "Hey, I'm not the one that's into fighting like you, Dad. Will you please do your plug so I shut the fuck up?"
Yeah, I was waiting. I wanted to make sure. Yeah, hey, ladies and gentlemen, go give the Radulich in Broadcasting Network Facebook page a like to stay up on top of all the great podcasts that we have to offer. All sorts of great content sitting right there. And if you go to any podcatcher, such as Spreaker is where we're home at. You could go to iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, type in Radulich, and you could subscribe and not miss one podcast.
We're on Podcast Addict now.
Yes. As a matter of fact, I just saw that. Okay, no, I didn't. But, yes, Podcast Addict.
We're also on Blueberry for the two people that use that.
Is there going to be as many podcatchers as there are going to be podcasts at one point?
That seems to be the way we're going, yes.
Wow. We do have a Patreon. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, if you'd like to check out some extra content, we have the cutting, what do we call it?
I just listened to that the other night. The What Got Cut. That's fucking hilarious, dude.
What got cut from the discussion between me, Mark, and, well, it wasn't much me. It was mostly Mark and Chris Armstrong.
Wasn't much you. You went on for 9 hours about your fucking auctions.
Oh, the books. I forgot about the books. Oh, yes. I shipped those out yesterday, as a matter of fact. But, yeah, hey, $1 a month. That's really all it takes. You can get access to some extra content. I do some stuff on there for the Source Material Comics podcast, and just a little 10, 15-minute episode about once a week. So, there's definitely going to be some commentaries on there you might find interesting. There's some discussion about D23 or D13, whatever the hell it was. Something about Disney. And, $1 a month. You could subscribe and then get all that access to extra content. All right, I'm ready to get the hell out of here, Mark. Let's go.
There's a 7.5-minute video called Mayhem Reacts to Lords of Chaos movie.
Oh, boy.
That might be fun to watch.
Wow. Yep.
All right. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I said that would. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. All right, folks, that's it. We've blathered on long enough. We appreciate you tuning in to hear us discuss Lords of Chaos. For the 6 of you that did, that's fucking great. Be well, you still with me, Jesse?
I'm here.
Be well, be safe, and behave.